Here she is in all of her glory. Ay, 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 ay. Okay, welcome back, guys. There's probably gonna be a clip of me doing this in every video, because every time I sit down, I'm like, wait, this needs to be up.
Hey guys, I'm Hannah Lorraine, and welcome to my channel.
All right, welcome back, y'all. So today we're going over a thrift flip. I really think those are some of my favorite sewing projects. I don't post about them enough. I need to do that more. Let's do a little thrift flip series. It's a lot of, sometimes it can be a lot of steps that goes into things, but anyways, I love a thrift flip. Today we've got a new one. I made a denim purse for one of my best friends for Christmas, and now, oh my gosh, and now we're gonna go over how I did it. So first off, I posted about this maybe in like November, back in November, when I went to the thrift store and got like the jeans to make it with. So let's take a look at that, and then we'll get back here and chat. Okay, so I'm at Goodwill. I'm making a denim purse. So I'm here to get a bunch of jeans. Well, not a bunch, but enough jeans. Like, I feel so short in my car. Like, I feel too big for my car. Anyways, let's go see what we find.
And I'll never get bored. Hey now, you're an all-star. Get your game on.
The Zuba was jumping today. I don't know. Let me show you what I got, and I'll show you what I plan to do with it. It's only a couple of things. I didn't get a lot of stuff. Got this blue blanket. I think what I want to make this into is like a little knit two-piece set, like pants and a top. I think this one will be plenty. Jeans. They're not exactly the same, but they're similar. Hopefully I'm going to be able to make two purses. I don't know though. If not, definitely one. Those were $8. The blanket was $8. And a little purse that was already, this was $6. Obviously I'm into the knits right now, but I might use it tomorrow. So yeah, that's what we got. Purse, jeans to make a purse, blanket to make an outfit. Okay, now that we know the game plan, I know I also talked about another little outfit. I haven't made that yet, so that'll be like the next thrift flip installment probably when I make that two-piece fit. But today we're talking about the denim purse. So first of all, let's go over our materials. Let me get my handy dandy iPad. Okay, so what you need for this, I thought I was gonna be able to make two purses with the two pairs of jeans, but with the size of the purse that I made, we are only able to make one, so keep that in mind. If you make something smaller than what I made, or change the design to whatever you wanna make, maybe you can make two pairs. Actually, you know what, I lied. I am making a second pair, but it's gonna be, not a second pair, a second purse, but it'll be a small one. I used two pairs of jeans. Also, you need a sewing machine for this. You can maybe hand sew this. However, for the sturdiness that you need and the durability that you need, a sewing machine will probably be your best bet. We also need, I use fabric glue, and I'll explain why later. Fabric scissors, of course, and then, you know, any thread. I use stabilizer for you, depending on like what kind of structure you want. I wanted this bag to be pretty structured because I was going off of this Coach bag that I like. That's a very structured tote. So I used the stabilizer, and also if you wanted to, I didn't use this, but if you wanted any hardware added to yours, I was trying to do this purely as a thrift flip and not purchase any other materials other than like the necessities, such as the stabilizer. Other than that, I didn't go purchase any other hardware. Although it would have been cute to have little notches on the bottom of the purse for when it sat down, but that's neither here nor there. And then also optional sandpaper. Nothing fancy. A sheet of sandpaper, a block of sandpaper. It just helps when you're fraying your edges later on, and we'll talk about that too. So let's get started. So as far as our measurements go, this tote was pretty large, the one that I made. So we have the front and the back of the purse, so the portion of the purse that you would see when you sit it down facing you. We've got 15 inches wide and 11 inches tall. And then for the sides to attach the front and the back, it's 6 inches wide, 11 inches tall. And then the base underneath where the bag would sit down on, with the part that is gonna sit down, would be 15 by 6 inches. And then in this purse, we also have an outside front pocket, an inside pocket, and handle straps.
The front outside pocket, I kind of thought of this as a good spot for like an iPad to fit. The friend I made it for, she has an iPad usually, and so I wanted to make sure there was space if she wanted to travel with this purse, like in the airport or something, that she could put her tech stuff in it. So the front outside pocket is the same width as the front of the purse, so 15 inches wide, and instead of being 11 inches tall, it's 9 inches tall, just to give some separation between the top of the bag and the pocket. Inside pocket is not a full-size pocket like the front of the bag. It has the purpose to serve like put your wallet in. Wanted to make sure it was definitely big enough to fit a phone. You could drop your keys in that part of it. Just any little knickknack that you don't want just in the body of the purse, you know. If you carry a purse, it's a dark hole sometimes. So it was 6 inches wide and 7 inches tall. And the handle straps were 6 inches in length and then probably about 2 inches. Yeah, about 2 inches in width as far as like the thickness of the strap. All right, so those are all of our measurements for the purse. And now let's get to sewing. Okay, so we're starting off with a stabilizer. These are gonna be the first parts that we cut. This is a sew-in stabilizer. When you're using stabilizer, there is iron-on stabilizers that like adhere that way, and there's ones that you have to sew in. Typically, from my experience, the ones that are thicker and sturdier are gonna be the ones that you have to sew down instead of iron on. I went with this because we're making a purse, and this is gonna allow the purse to have some more structure, a little more durability, and it'll keep its shape better. With this, what we're cutting right now is 2 of all of our measurements that are the body of the purse. So I'll pull up the measurements again to look at. We're gonna be cutting 2 of each of the measurements. So we have the one piece that we measured that would be the front and back. So that's gonna be the piece for the front, piece for the back. We need 1 for the base and then 2 for the sides. So the front and back, we do 2, the sides we do 2, the base we do 1. Of the rest of the purse, we're gonna do 1 for the front pocket because we only need the 1, and then we'll have 2 for the straps because there's 2 straps. For the inside pocket, we are not cutting stabilizer for that one. Once we've got all the stabilizer cut, then we're gonna cut our denim. I separated the denim by the seams, like the pants itself, I separated by the seams, and I came out with eight legs because, you know, 4 for each pair of pants, the front and back. So we're gonna lay our stabilizer out. The reason why we cut the stabilizer to the exact measurements is because that's gonna be the size of the purse. However, we're adding on 1/2 inch seam allowance because this is where we're gonna be able to do our fraying with later on. So when we sew down the stabilizer, we're gonna be sewing around the edges to secure it to the fabric. And then once the purse is all together and we start fraying, that's what that extra 1/2 inch. Usually when you sew something, you're gonna do about 1/4 inch seam allowance. But for this, we're doing 1/2 so that we can have room for seam allowance as far as structure and then still have some left over to fray all of our fabric. When you're cutting this fabric, it's important to pay attention to how the seams roll over. So you want to pull those out so that when you're cutting, you're actually cutting accurately. And with all of these, we are going to be so with the stabilizer, we only cut a certain amount. For the denim pieces, because it's going to go on the inside and the outside of a stabilizer like a sandwich, we're going to be cutting double of each piece. So for instance, for the front, we cut 2 pieces of stabilizer. So we're going to have 4 pieces of denim because we need 2 for each 1 piece. So it's a 2-to-1 ratio just because we're doing it in a sandwich type of method. So here we're just cutting off and we're going to be having our 1/2 inch seam allowance like we talked about. We're going to be having 5 pieces of stabilizer with 10 pieces of denim for the full purse, not including the pockets. Once you've got everything cut, we're going to take each piece of stabilizer and one of the pieces of fabric, the denim that matches it. And I'm using a craft glue to just place it down, hold it in place to where we sew for multiple reasons. One, I don't want the stabilizer to be moving around because I want it to stay centered so that I have those edges to fray. And then also this denim that I'm using in particular is a little stretchy, so it could move around as I'm sewing, warp, not lay flat. So you probably would want to use a fabric glue for this. I didn't know where mine was at the time, so that's why I'm using the craft glue. But we work with what we got and we make it work. And so once we have all that, you're going to do that for each piece. You can go ahead and put your other half on, just depending on what you're doing. But I waited because we're adding a pocket, and I didn't want the seams of this pocket to be on the outside of the purse. I only went on the inside. So here we are. We're using our inside pocket pieces. I cut 2 of those because we don't want any raw edges and we don't want any raw outside pieces of fabric. So I put the right sides together, not wrong, sorry. And we're sewing around the entire perimeter of this, but going to leave a little pocket so that we can turn it right side out before we sew it down onto the back side of the bag. Once we've got that all sewn, we're flipping it right side out. This does take a little second sometimes, but just be patient. Get your corners clipped and tuck them out so that you don't have rounded edges to the best of your ability. This can be a little more difficult with stiffer fabrics, thicker fabrics, but we don't have any stabilizer in here, so it makes it a little simpler. And so here I'm just trying to get those corners as pulled out as I can, because then we're going to lay it out on, this is the back side of the bag, because this is going to be the inside pocket on the back side. We are stitching that opening closed, and then we will stitch around the 2 sides and the bottom. So that top stitch that we did is going to be the top of the pocket, and then we're stitching around the edges as I show here. I will say the sewing machine that you use for this is important because you want something that can sew through a lot of layers. This purse has lots of layers, including the stabilizer. So when you think about it, there are certain points where you're sewing through 4 pieces of fabric, 2 pieces of stabilizer. So that can get pretty, I did go through a lot of nails with this. You definitely want to, not nails, I went through a lot of needles with this. So you definitely want a sturdier needle. You can get a denim needle, something that's going to look thicker. So therefore it doesn't snap in half while you're sewing, because I did have that happen a couple times because I was using a universal needle for this at the time. So we've got the pocket sewn down. I did make sure that the phone fit in fine because that was the main intention for this pocket, keys, whatever. So we just did a little tester on that. And now that we've got that inside pocket sewn in, we're going to go in with the outside piece of this back part, the back part of the purse. So now you don't see the stitching from the pocket on the outside of the purse. So this is the outside of the purse on the back side. The pocket is the inside of the purse on the back side of the purse. Smoothing that out, glued it down so that we can now stitch around the edges. So here's a strap to show an example of how we're doing this. So this strap has an inside, outside, and then the stabilizers in between, and we just stitched it all down together. And this is how we'll be fraying our edges. So depending on what side you're using, some of it frays better than the others. These ones that the blue thread is going long ways, you can just pull it and clip it, and then you get your fraying pretty easily that way. Now on the opposite edges, it's a different story. That's what we're going to bring the sandpaper in for later. So we're just fraying all the edges, and then we're going to cut any of those longer threads. I probably did leave a few of those just to give that disheveled look, because I did want this to look like a distressed edge bag, like pretty rough, pretty like, I don't know the word I'm looking for, but very much distressed is what I looked for. I didn't want anything perfect. So we've got our front piece that we're working on now. So this is what all the fraying on the edges is going to look like when the purse is all together, as you saw in the beginning. So now we're putting on our front piece pocket, and we're really just stitching down and around. So the 2 sides and the bottom to close the pocket up. And this part, my measurements were a little off, but I did make sure to correct them for the measurements that you all have so that everything can be even for you. And then you're going to stitch them together. Now we're working on our straps that we distressed already. We're going to do a little square cross stitch like you would see on any other like grocery tote or like the canvas bags that people buy, just because it's pretty sturdy. We're going through a lot of layers, so we want enough stitching. I did do a shorter stitch for this too, instead of a longer one, just so that it could be nice and secure and tight. So I pinned those down. I did put a little bit of glue on this too, just to hold it down while I sewed, but the thickness of this and the curve that I was using, the glue wasn't necessarily strong enough, so I did make sure to get that pinned down really well before I started stitching. And we're doing the same thing for each bag, so I laid them together just to make sure that everything was lined up right. The length of the straps were the same, because that would be awkward if they weren't. So we're going around in a square, and then after that we will be we will be sewing in a cross stitch over from corner to corner for the squares, just for an extra security on the strap, because we don't want this to fall apart on anybody. Right, so we've got all of our pieces together now at this point. We've got the back side with the inside pocket and the strap sewn on. This is our front side with our front outside pocket and the strap sewn on. We've got our base of the purse that we're gonna add here, and then we have the 2 side pieces. Essentially, you're just gonna be doing a bunch of straight stitches to get this all together like a puzzle. I started with the base and the sides so that it would be easiest for me to maneuver putting on the front with the most space possible without closing it out so early where I can't maneuver everything. So we sewed those 2 sides together and sewed the 2 sides to the base of the purse, just a straight stitch. Again, I kept it short, but I also did a stitch that went backwards and forwards. So this is where we're at. Now we're gonna do the bottom. We're sewing the bottom on now. This side is gonna be terrible, but here we are. We're gonna do the bottom now. Cool, okay. The purse is done. What we're about to do now is do some sanding on it to like distress it some more. Got some sandpaper. I'm just gonna be taking it and kind of fraying up these, because one direction of the jeans distressed better than the other. So you can just take sandpaper to rough it up, you know? I just have some open edges that need to be like, yeah, that's doing exactly what I wanted. Nice. Press that up. I'm also contemplating doing some little stitches, but she's more of a neat girl. So I think this level of disorder is perfect for her. Y'all, I have broken into a sweat making this purse. I'm gonna go in with a lighter to melt some of these threads down too. Right now I'm just cutting off any long ones like this. We don't need all that. Hold on. Here she is. She's cute. Oh, I wish this was mine. It's not a bag for your arm, but it's like a cute little, and it's big enough. She carries totes, so, well, sometimes she carries little crossbodies. There's the baggie.